So recently during homeroom class, one of my male students asked, he was like, "Ms. Dawson, are you married?" I was a bit taken aback by the question. It was so random, but I responded with a simple no. Now, I'm not sure if this kid had a crystal ball under his desk or what, but the next thing he said was, "Ooh, Ms. Dawson has an L in romance." And suddenly there was an awkward silence that fell on the room. The few black kids in the class were looking around like, someone call 911. Because deep down they know you don't comment on a black woman's relationships, right? And then I broke the silence with a sudden burst of laughter. I burst into laughter because honestly, where was the lie? And then just like that, the entire class followed, filling the room with laughter. This playful exchange, so funny, it led me to reflect on how far I've come in my journey of self-love. Just almost a decade ago, that comment would have cut me deeply. Back then, my self-worth was wrapped up in titles: wife, teacher, mother. I didn't know who I was without them. But today, I see myself differently. I know who I am. Still in my "I need a man" love stage, I was crushed by the sting of rejection when I got divorced. Not because the relationship was ending, but because that was not the future that I imagined for myself and my future kids. And guess what? I would have never imagined back then that self-love would have had anything to do with the trajectory that my life took. After all, I loved myself enough to stay out of trouble, keep my nose clean growing up in the projects. The only girl, by the way, from the projects to get inducted in the Honor Society for my community. What a lonely experience that was. But I also loved myself enough to fulfill my ancestors' dreams and what they stood for. I went to college, I got an education. But here's the thing, what I didn't know back then was that self-love was a journey, not a destination. Sometimes we accomplish things out of love for ourselves, and for sure, we love ourselves, right? But with each level we reach, new challenges arise that test the relationship that we have with ourselves. And we don't realize that those challenges test our self-worth because we're so focused on the outward success. Needless to say, my self-esteem was not a vibe. And all those achievements that I mentioned, the good grades, the talents, career, marriage, all that, were all some of the things and more that I used to build my self-esteem on. So I had that remark been said just 9 years earlier, it would have cut me like a knife, you see, because like many high-achieving women that work for what we want in life, I felt like a failure. I felt embarrassed because back then my whole identity was wrapped up in titles and the things that I did and I achieved, and I met every expectation, whether it was at work or at home, and even in my own mind, I was relentless. I tied my worth to my ability to succeed and to juggle every responsibility without faltering. It was exhausting. But what I didn't know was that I was failing myself. I just couldn't see past the roles that I thought I had to play or the perfection that I believe I needed to be to realize I was putting so much pressure on myself. But that all had to happen so that I could become the woman that I am today. So I laughed because the question was, first of all, random, right? Kids are so random. They're curious. And for years, they've asked me the darndest things. But I just remember my place as a trusted adult and a professional to keep that balance and keep it pushing. That comment about getting an L made me realize that where I once was full of shame and embarrassment, I've now grown. The truth is, if I could go back and face that same loss 1,000 times, I would. That loss that I took was painful, it was expensive, it was difficult to navigate, and it stretched me financially, but the peace and clarity that came as a result was worth it. Now that's growth. But I had to go through those experiences to learn how to fully love myself completely and wholeheartedly, whether I'm with a man or not. So ladies, to me, that's not an L at all. Any woman who can leave a relationship with her identity intact, that's a W. Now here's a question for you all. How many of you have had something that you desired that didn't pan out, leaving you feeling ashamed? If you've ever experienced that, place a 1 in the chat. For some, it might be a relationship, for others, a job or a career, and for others, financial struggles. We all have experiences, right, and challenges that test us. That's part of the human condition. So why is it that when we get hurt in relationships, it sometimes brings out the worst in us? Why do we close ourselves off to others and even worse to ourselves? Ladies, this is your call to rise in love. cherish yourself, embrace your strength, and rediscover the self-love you once had before life took over. Follow me for more if you're ready to deepen your love for yourself like never before on this empowering journey of courage, growth, and triumph.